Good morning, everyone. Aloha. I'm Jason Schwartz. This is the Neutral Zone. I have guest Phyllis Robinson with me today.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I've been around for a long, long year. So many men sold away. And I was around when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and faith. Made damn sure that Pilate washed his hands and sealed his face. Pleased to meet you. Hope you get my name. But what puzzling you is the nature of my game.
Good morning, everyone. Aloha. I'm Jason Schwartz. This is the Neutral Zone. We're at 88.5 FM, KAKU, the voice of Maui. We're also found on Facebook Live. You can find us the next day at MauiNeutralZone.com. I bring that up because all our shows are there, and we have them all as a library, because we know that in the world, you may or may not have found us. We're now at show number 80, and we're doing it every week except for holidays. And so we've had some really great people, and I like to do it by areas of values and interest. And I've been involved in things with I want to call it regeneration of soil and farming and things about food. And, we've gone through all kinds of subjects. And a couple of weeks ago, I had an opportunity to meet this young lady, and I said, what an interesting lady. Her name is Phyllis Robinson. Phyllis, thank you for coming here to our show.
My pleasure to be here, Jason. I couldn't have been. A Monday morning, what a wonderful thing to do.
Okay. I'm hoping you're close enough. Just the further you are away, the more echoey it sounds to the people in the air. So
how's that?
Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and if you want, pull it down a little bit so they can see your beautiful face.
Okay.
There you go, perfect. Now talk, and we'll see.
Okay.
Just talk normal. That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, yeah, now, so, Phyllis, when I met you, I was like, wow, here she is. Was that the movie that we first met, or did we meet before that?
I think the movie was the first time we met, but I believe you've come to Farmers Union meetings in the past.
Oh, yeah. Well, so let me give you a trail to here. It was a few months ago, the Mankind Project, a men's group that gets together for the betterment of having the young people, stand on the shoulders of those that came before. That's us. Beautiful. And we had a special interest group, Genesis Young and Kalan Prensky, Paul Sable, David Johnston, I hope I'm not forgetting anyone, and me, I think. And we were talking about how we could create bills, because Genesis was working with Kelly King and trying to come up with things that would help our environment. And in that meeting, Paul Sable and Chris were talking about this movie called The Need to Grow. And Paul was starting to talk to them about this thing that he saw in this movie. And I thought I should probably call up there too, because more than just a special interest group, I wanted to do some things. So I found out that he was going to be coming to see, maybe, if he's lucky, Larry Ellison and the people and what they're doing over in Lanai that Free People See. Mm-hmm. This guy's working on a project. You probably saw our show 2 weeks ago. Michael was on, and he was before the Climate and Resilience Committee of the Council. Michael Smith is his name. Anyway, when he came here, and Chris said, let's put him on at the college. We'll do a movie thing. And we had a room that the person at the college thought, you'll maybe have 30 people at maximum. We never get attendance. And the room was like overfull.
Yep.
The room holds 60. It had 100. And more was probably walking away. And anyway, this movie had something about environment and regenerative agriculture. And it was really a pretty good thing to most people in the audience. And in that audience, there was one woman who I don't exactly know how it is that we struck a conversation, and it just blossomed, and then I realized, oh, Vince Mina's here. You know, Phyllis, you work with the Hawaii Farmers Union.
That's
right?
correct. I was, yes. Mm-hmm.
And no, you can tell me. And then you've got this special project that you're working on now. Is it a separate group or part of it?
Yes, the Farm Apprentice Mentoring Program, or FAM, is a program of the Hawaii Farmers Union United, and it actually formed and was born 6 years ago, back when the Farmers Union was just one quite large program out at the Haiku Community Center. Actually, it started at the Pukalani down below the Hannibal Tavares Center, and then it grew, and then it grew, and it kept growing, and we were averaging 100 people every single meeting. And somewhere around the 70th meeting, Bill Greenleaf, who was then the president of the Farmers Union, said, let's grow some farmers. The average age of farmers is 60. And so we met in Susan Teton's living room. We gathered Alika Atai, James Simpliciano, as many farmers in the room, Simon Russell, and we talked about what would a really excellent beginning farmer program look like. And from there, we created FAM. And FAM now has graduated 62 farmer apprentices across this island.
How many of them are practicing farmers?
78% are still farming. Yes. So
That's great.
Yeah, we just did a survey this year of our 62 graduates. And now we have 33 apprentices this year, including our 5 out in Hana. So, and we have gotten our funding from the county of Maui, and we are now a line item in the county's budget. And this is our 5th year of funding. We're in our 5th cohort. And we focus on regenerative agriculture.
How do you measure progress? I mean,
what kind of questions do we ask?
No, for the county, I always say, well, what is the county doing this for? They want to cultivate new farmers. Mm-hmm. Do they say, okay, we're going to give possibilities for these people to farm land? Are they involved in any way like that also?
Well, our program actually has 2 parts, and the second part is where our farmers are ready to make the big leap and get farmland of their own, and we connect them with the people they need to know in order to do that. Some are real estate agents. You may know Hugh Starr. Hugh Starr comes and speaks with our apprentices about how to negotiate a long-term lease as a farmer, which is really important. If you're going to buy land, what should you be looking for? The Farm Service Agency comes and speaks to our apprentices. Probably you've heard of Buddy Nichols. That's the USDA's Farm Service Agency. They give low-interest loans to farmers. And this year, they shot up the amount to $600,000 because there were complaints that the original $300,000 was not enough to buy land on Maui. So now our apprentices know Buddy. They can go to him. A couple of our apprentices have actually bought land, and so they become the peer mentors to their fellow apprentices, and they give them the information that they need to build up the information that's required. And it's like a business plan. You can't really go to any landowner or, for that matter, to the Farm Service Agency without having a farm plan.
For that matter, to the bank to get a loan.
Well, yes. I think, I don't want to say this, but I think the Farm Service Agency's interest rates are lower than the banks. And according to Buddy Nichols, he has a lot of money to give away. And so Not giveaway. He's got a lot of money to lend.
Do they, one of these loans,
Giveaway. Wouldn't that be nice?
that would be nice. Are they long loans, 10 years, 20 years?
30.
30-year loans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can use the funding for your farm infrastructure. Some of our apprentices who are off grid have actually bought their large water catchment tanks using FSA funds.
Are they interest-only loans, or are they? I'm only curious because the land isn't going away, only getting more precious. So interest-only loans could work because the value seems to keep going up.
Yes.
Do they do that, or they do amortized? Do you know?
I hesitate to answer that question.
The only reason I'm thinking, when you talked earlier, you work and write grants sometimes, right?
That is actually how FAM got started. The Haleakala, well, there's 13 chapters of the Farmers Union statewide, and there's 4 on Maui. And back then, when we first started, there was only one chapter statewide, and it was called the Maui Farmers Union United. And at that meeting was the meeting at which we formed FAM. And go back to the question that you just asked, because I just had a brain, one of those little bubbles in the brain. What was your original question? Can you remember?
I was following you. One second. My question really is, when you started talking, I'm off listening to you, and I wasn't even remembering the question. 1 second.
That's all right.
Let's go to something. Okay.
Anyway.
Well, now here's what I'm wondering.
Yes.
When you have land when you get a loan, you normally pay amortized. You're trying to pay off the principal. When you have land with the intention of farming, intention of doing something that's going to create long-term good, there must be some kind of advantage to making it interest only. It's a lease, right? So,
well, actually, you're
buying the land.
You're buying the land. Yes.
Okay. I'd be curious to see who owns the land, because sometimes some of these large landowners. This is me too. I'm curious to see what the loans look like you're talking about. But large landowners have it in their financial ability with their assets to get loans on land, and they internally could move some of their assets to this category to secure a loan, or to be there long term and fit in their financial statement, so that the payments on the land, for like an encouragement to a farmer, where they wouldn't have to pay off the principal.
Oh.
So that they only are paying the interest, and the whole purpose being, and maybe they want to sell it someday for a profit, but I'm thinking long term as far as food scarcity and value added, trying to come up with a model that is not quite as financially intensive to encourage more farmers.
Wonderful. It sounds like you've got a background in this, Jason.
Well, what I'm trying to do, I was in the mortgage business in residential and in commercial, but I know in land, I've never really worked with the farm loans. And
well, maybe you should start.
I'm going to start, but I'm thinking, what I'm trying to do is, in these times when our goal is to create as many farms as we can,
yes,
I want to say, put carbon back in the ground.
Yep.
I don't want to disconnect us from a global important thing that we have to replenish the land.
Yes.
So regenerative agriculture, in my mind, means that we are teaching people how to do it. And doing it on a small scale is warm and fuzzy. It's nice, like carrying a little baby. But I'm thinking on being something unique, just like I always talk at the Maui Arts and Music thing about being an example to the world, the self-sustainability model Maui. Financially, we could be an example to the world,
yes,
especially on an island where I don't think anyone here can say the land values have gone down anywhere on this island. Have they?
No.
So if the people that own a lot of the land have it on their financial balance sheets, and they want to get a loan, they can get a loan, because they have resources.
That's correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Some of them actually are banks. I don't know if they have to stay arm's length or not, but they could surely be doing this without putting the land in the equation. That's what I'm trying to say. They could own the land, and that land, as a bank, could really give security. They could be like almost like a bank, like Joseph in Egypt. But it's really true, because food and food sources and land that would be guaranteed, a program that would get more and more individuals, and that wouldn't, could be big farmers, but we're not talking about that. We're developing small farmers,
family farms, yeah,
right? And getting them financed, where some people who they don't have the money to go buy a $500,000 piece of property, but they might have to buy the things that they need to work on this property.
That's right.
Anyway, that was my whole, maybe an unusual slant.
Yeah, no, it's great. And Jason, I'm as I listen to you and realize how little I know about this and how much I feel like I should know about this, I may invite you in to come and speak with our apprentices about what these different options are. And
well, maybe
what
we're creating options that may not exist, and that's why I think it's
fine.
Very exciting, because that's the kind of thing that I think we can do from here.
Yeah.
We're unique. We're on an island. We're in the middle of the Pacific. A lot of the people that own the land, that have all the resources, that some people think are the big bad wolf. Well, what if the big bad wolf became part of the security long-term in the bank? They don't lose anything. Their assets continue to be of value. They're part of this food co-op that can keep our island in food, train more and more people to be farmers, be an example, really be an example to our future generations, because, it's really interesting. In our lifetimes, I'm going to say you're much younger than me, but I'm old.
You're not that old.
Well,
and I'm not
April,
that young.
In a month, I'm 69 years old. So,
I'm maybe months younger than you.
Oh, okay.
I'll be 69 in August.
All right, well, then when we grew up, and I remember it was always, people were in the country, and then they moved to the cities, and then the cities get too glutted, and they start running out back to the country. And now the world has gotten to a point where we really have to do something. And so people are realizing and wanting to get spread out. If they all could be small, this doesn't work for everywhere, but we're in a unique situation here.
Yes.
We're in Hawaii, and we have got a unique resource base with those big owners. Whether this becomes the Kingdom of Hawaii, or whether it stays the state of Hawaii, or whatever, those resources, whoever owns them, financially are really of great value.
Yes.
And so that piece of that financial could be, I don't want to say take it out of the equation, but, the people that have the very big money, that's why Bloomberg can spend $1 billion and not flinch. His interest is $1 billion. And I say that about these large owners, deep pocket, deep ownership base, can do a lot to be part of this, rather than think of them as adversarial.
Yes.
And it might actually to be a healing thing too.
I think so. Well, I'm noticing that the coastal land trust people are enticing more and more large landowners to put their land into perpetuity, where it just stays, let's say, agricultural land, and it allows for agriculture, and that's it. And I think that some of us wanted to think that that was what the 41,000 acres that Mahipono purchased was also considered to be important ag lands to the state. And so that keeps it in ag, but what kind of ag? And that has been the big question mark, is that are the corporate farms feeding the world? Will they feed the world on these? Will they feed Maui on those 41,000 acres, or do they need the help of these small family farms? Because the World Food Program, the WFP, released a report in 2018 saying that small family farms are feeding the world. As much as we were taught that, the big farms, the big ag, the one that are heavily subsidized by the federal government are feeding the world. And it's actually not true.
So, by the way, this is Phyllis Robinson. You should all know that. Phyllis is has a program to teach farmers to be farmers, to teach individuals to be farmers, right?
Yes, and with a focus on regenerative agriculture.
Well, we're here because we want to continue, I think, a really important factor in our world now, that the world is changing, and we have to, I kind of say, shake up the marbles. Training people to be farmers. I remember as a kid, the 4-H clubs and all kinds of things that were around that were there to teach people to be farmers. And then the corporate farmers took over. And when we talk about Mahi Pono, we all had great hopes. And I still have great hopes, only because I met Michael Smith. And I know that this process to take green waste, turning it into power, creating biochar, phytoceuticals that make things grow like Jurassic Park, has to be really important to someone that's growing food. And if lots of little people do it, we can all do it. And if they don't do it, we'll be doing it. And that's why I say your program is very important. And talking outside of a big landowner, a 41,000 acre person who's doing that, we question their motives. I don't really know why. I try not to question their motives. I think they're stumbling forward based on when they came here. Here's my guess. Everyone thought Shan Tsutsui was and still is a really nice guy who could negotiate and do things for this island, right? I still think of that as who he is. Now, he may have been handed a thing that said, here's what we've got now, and here's what we've got to do. We have these relationships that we are in. The part that I have a problem is the transparency part, because I think if they were transparent about what's going on, people in our community would virtually volunteer, but for very, very modest, be part of a real solution. We're working with them to do just what you said. I've seen farm plans. 2016. Who made that plan up? Maui Tomorrow put out this plan.
Yeah, it was a beautiful plan.
Which is a look at what to do with a big chunk of land and how it can serve and do it all. Now, that hasn't really ever been addressed that I know of in any formal way. Have you ever seen that?
Well, at the Hawaii Farmers Union Convention, not this year, but the year before, a group of women approached me to join in with them, and those women were part of an organization called Ina First.
Okay, well, we saw you talked about Susan Teton.
Yes.
And Kutira, right?
That's right, and I think Beth Savitt was part of that group, and Sandra Hay. I think those were the women that were were there. And at that time, we had asked for a meeting with the then head of the Department of Agriculture, who happened to be at the convention. And we said to him, we've been I'm saying they were trying to get in the door to make a bid for that land, and utilizing some of what Mahi Pono, Jenny Pell, all these folks had come up with as the solution for...
You didn't mean Mahi Pono, you mean Maui Tomorrow.
Did I say Mahi Pono?
Yeah, right.
Thank you for correcting me.
But they come up with solutions and no one's listening.
Right, but wait a minute. I haven't finished. So at that meeting with the head of the Department of Agriculture, he intimated that it was already a done deal, that all that land had already been, was already, what do they call it? In
escrow.
In escrow. So we were very sad about that. And we walked away back to our booths at the convention with a heavy heart, because Ina first had been trying to get a meeting with A&B for the purchase of the land. So, and they had a plan. They had a beautiful rendering. They had experts. They had everything that they thought.
Yeah, I saw. It was really beautiful. And we'll talk more about that, because I spoke to the guy that was behind it. You know, if they mentioned a big name, they'd get through the door. It's a very sad thing. I know I'm finding in some of the meetings that I've had, it's only because I got an introduction from someone that's important to them that they even saw me. And so I bring it up because that is really a real issue. I understand.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a break for our sponsors. We Kama Ina Loan and Harry Eager. Remember him? He has a blog. They're our sponsors for the month. We're going to take a break, and we will be back very shortly with Phyllis Robinson. And I'm Jason Schwartz. Hang on a second. The Neutral Zone, with me, Jason Schwartz, would like to thank Maui Arts and Music Association, Dreammakers Foundation of Maui, for their support. Since 1991, with hundreds of television shows and their MauiArtsandMusic.com website, they have championed self-sustainability on Maui. The Neutral Zone is heard live Mondays at 11 a.m. and replayed Saturday at 7 a.m. on KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui.
Get a jump on protecting Maui's coral reefs. No need to wait for Hawaii's new sunscreen law to go in effect. This is Archie Kalepa asking you to make the switch today to sunscreens that do not contain reef-harming oxybenzone or octanoxate. Find out about better choices at mauireefs.org/sunscreen. Sponsored with Aloha by Maui Nui Marine Resource Council, Maui Visitors Bureau, and the County of Maui Office of Economic Development.
Hi, this is Steve Summers. Join me Sunday mornings from 1 to 2 a.m. with a replay Sunday mornings from 10 till 11 for the Oldies Time Machine. It's familiar oldies from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, plus some of those rare tracks you won't hear on any other radio program. Right here on KAKU 88.5, the voice of Maui.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Jason Schwartz, host of The Neutral Zone. KAKU is a listener-supported station. This means that all of the great programs you hear, like mine, are sponsored by you as well as our underwriters. If you would like to help keep the voice of Maui talking loud and clear, go to kakufm.org/donate today and give. And don't miss The Neutral Zone Mondays at 11 a.m. on 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. This is Jason Schwartz. We are back here with Phyllis Robinson on The Neutral Zone. You can find this show and all our shows at MauiNeutralZone.com. You can look at Facebook Live now. You can go to KAKU Radio, 88.5 FM. And everything, our shows live on YouTube, but MauiNeutralZone.com, I think of it as a library because not everyone has found us yet. And as they do and find an interesting interview and they start going back, they see there are a lot of interesting interviews. And they all fit together with a plan in mind or plans in mind. And that's with the power of cooperation. You know, I mean, I'm here with Phyllis Robinson. Remember when, Phyllis, we were talking about co-ops, agricultural co-ops?
Yep.
Something everyone knows about that's in agriculture because they know they have a product and they have to get it to market. And there's much more power in cooperation to make sure that everyone's product is sold and gets to market.
Yes. Yeah, cooperatives have not have not done so well in Hawaii, and we're not quite sure why, but we'd like to figure out, maybe rather than focusing on the problem, maybe we can focus on the solution to co-ops not working in Hawaii.
You're talking about agricultural co-ops, right?
Yes.
I'm talking co-ops. The reason I brought up agricultural co-ops, because that's a model. There's a new agricultural co-op model.
Tell me.
That allows for nonprofits and individuals to be involved in such a way that the Securities and Exchange Commission, that is involved with so many people involved in projects, if done in this new agricultural co-op model, can bring in all kinds of different partners, big and small, to co-op together. Well, now, agricultural co-op is maybe a specifically different model.
Well, not necessarily. I've heard of the model you're talking about. It's a multi-stakeholder model. And Teresa Young from the Kohala Center on the Big Island comes over every year and speaks to our farmer apprentices about co-ops. And they have a part of the Kohala Center called the Cooperative Small Business Development Center, and their job, they have technical assistance money from the USDA to go all over the state and talk about co-ops. And they introduce to us the notion of a multi-stakeholder that is similar to what you just described, Jason.
Not everyone is a farmer in this.
That's correct.
You don't always have to. You could be an investor in this. You can bring in different kinds of other resources into this.
But you have to be careful with investors. As long as they are one person, one vote. Once they try to wield their power over, let's say, the farmers, if there are farmer members that are part of the co-op, then it kind of starts to resemble something else, not a cooperative. So it's hard for investors. They're invested, probably more so than each individual farmer member.
Well, I'm going to bring up something. Maybe it's different, but maybe it's not. What if you had you guys, some of you know what an Earth Power Lodge is and know what a liquid prairie is if you saw the movie Need to Grow. But what if you were wanting to invest in that? There are investors in the hardware and the system and its output, and then there are the farmers that use it. And some of those farmers are also investors. Those investors want to get a yield, but the farmers want to. That's a whole separate kind of a thing. So when you're talking about a co-op influencing farmers, I'm really not talking about that kind of. I'm using the co-op structure in agriculture to be able to have this investments into equipment that gets a yield of a product that's this biosupplement and the biochar, which is a positive cash flow business model, which separate from the farmers.
Well, we wouldn't want to. I happen to believe that the way farmers can make a living is if they share. I think you've met Arnie Zoss before, but Arnie has an integrative framework for the farmer where
you're talking about with their yield,
where the farmer owns the entire process all the way to the consumer, so that they are co-owners in a infrastructure. And it might be that the infrastructure that I've had in mind doesn't include a byproduct that the investors might be interested in.
Well, that's what I'm trying to look at. I'm trying to say, okay, some people may want it, but they don't have the money to put this big piece of new thing into place. So there's investors coming in. Well, those investors are now in an agricultural co-op, but that doesn't involve their produce necessarily. Maybe it does, but I'm trying to think of a return on investment on putting money into the facility, the facility, which creates a byproduct, which is a cash flow.
Right.
And now members of the co-op, again, that's why We need. That's why we need. What do we say? Attorneys to do it, right? Or someone that understands the co-op model.
Mm-hmm.
But members of the co-op, they can buy at a preferred rate the product that's coming off, if right, that's part of it, and then their yield, a small percentage, goes back to the people that created this supplement. So that becomes the way that their cash flow can support the creation of this thing.
Yeah, you know, something that you're saying does so well in a diagram. And
that's right, yeah, especially on radio.
On radio, it's really hard to envision this without a diagram. I'm excited about Michael Smith's model, and I think that it has a lot of potential. And I know that there are places like HANA that would benefit tremendously from that. And I think you had wanted to talk a little bit about the HANA model. Yes?
Well, you know, Michael Smith presented on the 25th of February to the Climate and Resilience Committee. You were there, and you
Yes.
made a very eloquent opening about why they should listen to this.
Yes.
Thank you. And at that meeting, afterwards, I got a text from Shane Sinensi, councilman, who said he'd like to see a pilot test project in HANA, because he had mentioned at the meeting that they have a problem with African tulip and other invasive species. And Michael Smith had referenced to him in that meeting that, in fact, we could take those invasive species, make them now fertilized fuel, and get rid of them, and we could really clean up. And like you were just mentioning, that right now they're hauling green waste from HANA. Where are they hauling it? All the way into the town?
To the landfill.
Isn't that extraordinary?
I know. It makes no sense at all.
Makes no sense. So
if you've ever driven the HANA Highway.
So a pilot project out there, and now maybe the county, we'll see, you know, that maybe you know that process better than I do. Where's the money going to come from? Who's going to put them? I'm going to go to the environmental management group for, I don't know if it's really a loan. We're going to try it. So maybe they call it a loan to be, I don't know. That's what we'll find out. But there are other investors who would like to be part of this, because that is part of this Earth Power Lodge, this closed loop system to create this biochar with the riding, I call it riding stimulants. Biochar is like a piece of charcoal, except it has lots of surface area. Like a 2-inch piece of charcoal, if opened up in surface area, it'd be the size of a football field. So what is the significance? Well, when the algae, in combination with Michael and what they're doing in their system, creates enzymes that help the plants grow more quickly, and they don't have to work. All that stuff creates greater output, and you know, that kind of a system can work. It takes care of multiple problems at the same time.
Well, it cleans up the soil, and it makes the soil use less water. And when you use less water in the soil, what happens is that you have less runoff. And when you have less runoff, and you're living on a fragile, beautiful island like ours, then we're going to be protecting our reefs. And people don't quite understand how that works. But if you think about the soil and you think about biochar, it's a condominium for microbes. And so the microbes are able to inhabit that space and multiply. And when the microbial action happens in the soil, then you're not only increasing the possibility that water will retain, but you'll also increasing the nutrients in the soil and the nutrient uptake of the plant, which means healthier people. And when you think about healthier people, I like to think about healthier keiki. And boy, would I love to see Michael's be in combination with a food co-op that would actually see food in our school lunch programs and work with the procurement system. And Shan Sinensi, when he was lieutenant governor, he introduced the farm to school.
You mean Shan Tsutsui.
Did I say?
You meant Shan.
I meant Shan
Tsutsui, not Shane Sinensi.
Shane Sinensi is our county council
you
member
Shan
from
Tsutsui as
Hana.
lieutenant governor.
I was talking about former Lieutenant Governor Shan Tsutsui, and Shan had created the Farm to School initiative, and I believe that it's still in existence. It's just that Shan is now working with Mahipono. So I'm hoping that he hasn't lost that vision, and that we can see huge amounts of healthy food making its way into our school lunch programs.
What I keep hearing about the school, Susan Teton was here last week.
Oh, was
she? Was here last week. She was my guest.
She didn't tell me.
Well, and the thing that we were talking about school lunch programs is you got to do all this and pay for it with less than $1 a meal. And in other words, the price constraints and all that really make the good quality food you're talking about harder to
cost
reach.
Prohibitive. Well, think about it. Why is it that they can do it for $1 a meal? Do you think that the big corporate farmers are making such a huge profit that they can provide it at that price level? No, they're all being subsidized. They're being subsidized by the federal government, which are the ones that are procuring this food. And we're saying procure local food, cut down on the amount that you have to pay for fossil fuels to get it here.
Have you had any kind of additional response from Shan Tsutsui?
I tried to meet with him about this, but it was the startup time, and it was really hard to get a meeting with him. But
well, that's back to what we were talking about before the break. People going to A and B, or you trying to go see Mahipono, me trying to go see Mahipono, and go to, unless you somehow come in with them knowing that there's a potential bite of something they want, they're not quite as open as we'd like them to be.
Well, I want to see our kids in our schools understanding, and I think the School Garden Network here, thank you Lane Huff, thank you Kathy Becklin for Grow Some Good. I think the School Garden Network is beginning to really interest kids in growing their own foods.
That's great.
And so when you have that, then I believe that if we started bringing local food in the form of, let's say, a salad bar, that I think what's in the salad bar should be the school lunch, the school garden produce. But they can't do that because of USDA safety laws. If we had a cooperative food hub, right, that maybe has Michael's, that's part of that whole operation, if we had that, then the kids would get to go on a field trip and bring their food into a certified kitchen and see it processed in a way that's safe, and then suddenly it ends up back in the school, and then they get to talk to their peers about how this is the food we grew.
Where is there an obstacle to make that happen?
Yeah, it's the one that you brought up. It's the fact that it's $1. How do we make the price points work?
But you're not getting meetings with some of these people. Would they be able to adjust it, or it has to be alone? You think it's got to be?
Well, you talked to Susan Teton. She tried to do this nationwide a long time ago, and she was moderately successful, but not in the ways in which she had hoped. And I think that what we need to do is think about how to subsidize our smaller family farms that are growing locally, because we'll never be able to meet those price points. However, if we were subsidized in the same way that these big corporate farmers are subsidized, then we might be able to provide it as a local food, and a local food that's grown in a way in which you're getting that nutrient uptake that I'm talking about. So it's not just empty calories. It's really substantial.
That's one of Michael's big things. He's talking about the quality of the produce. When I don't know how many people really realize that when they get produce right now, how depleted of vitamins and minerals and things that we all think are there. But they are so depleted, it's really like eating cardboard. I mean, I don't mean to be rude about it, but it's really the truth. And in our lifetime, it's gotten worse and worse, and our eyes have been open to it.
Yeah.
What's that reason? Why do you think that? Money? Is that what's done it?
Well, mostly, yeah. Corporate farming, became like a big deal. You were mentioning it, that when we came out of the Second World War, we had this idea that we could feed the world on these big corporate farms, and we started making huge yields that were being shipped to places like maybe Europe, where they were trying to rebuild after a major world war. And so we had a need, we had a lot of impoverished people, and we needed to feed them. Well, we also were using the chemicals left over from the Second World War. They decided that they had a use. And so they started to use those chemicals that were used in chemical warfare for herbicides and pesticides. And you start putting them on your crops big time, then what are you doing over time is that you're depleting the soil's ability to give those plants the nutrition uptake that is needed to have healthy food. And what has been the result? A very unhealthy population.
Right. Just extraordinary how we've depleted our soil. We've heard, again, as long as we're alive, we know monocropping, growing one thing in the same soil, will deplete that soil.
Yes.
So you have to supplement it with chemicals and pesticides, and then next year it's worse, and you got to put more on, and that's the right word, moron. This is a moron would do that. But meanwhile, that's what they did. And then they move and take more land, and then they bring more chemicals. Well, we want to turn that around.
Yeah, we want to see that, we have a fairly close-knit community here on Maui.
Yeah.
And I think that no one can really argue with wanting to feed children healthy foods. Not just children, all of us, healthier foods. Because we see the amount of dis-ease there is in our population. And
it's extraordinary, and we've done it to ourselves. For the convenience of going to fast food, we eat things that are full of all kinds of preservatives.
I know. Hey, it's hard to turn down a French fry.
But, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Our society, makes it easier and easier to go after something cheap and easy and quick. It really is it's depleted our society.
Well, I'll tell you, Jason, you would be thrilled to meet some of our apprentices because they bring me hope. The look in their eyes when they are starting to learn from Jerry Ross what is actually makes for healthy soil, and they're getting it kind of maybe more detailed than they want because Jerry is an academic, but he's also a successful organic farmer up in Kula, and he brings to them, and then they go up onto his farm. This past Sunday, they built one of his miraculous compost piles with all the food waste that he's collected, and composting is nothing new, but being able to reuse, and that's why Michael's system, Michael Smith's system, is so interesting, is that I was intrigued by the idea of I thought it was going to be food waste that was going in this system, because we have so much food waste.
Well, we can have multiple, that's the issue really, multiple dragons. A dragon is where it takes the green waste and burns it with the power it got that came off the other part of the process, right?
Yeah.
So you can have multiple dragons, but to get certified, OMRI certified, and all the different things, you need to be pure. That doesn't mean you can't have 2 dragons or 3 dragons and separate it out. Food waste 1, again, in other words, that's the whole point of this. Once we start, that's why 1 in Hana, we can have 1 in Hana and 1 here and 1 there and 1 here and 1 there, feeding and, in combination with 1 or more Earth Power Lodge. I mean, that's what's so beautiful about this system.
So the
It's like
system is
Legos.
about $4 million to build it?
Well, consider it this. Yes, Michael, broke it into pieces. It's $1.5 million, and then another million, then another million, then another. What it is, it's built in stages. But remember, this is thought of as a whole closed-loop system. You can talk about liquid prairie. Those are fun words, and because he was in Montana. But liquid prairie is this closed thing that looks like the Earth Power Lodge, because he did it with different investors before, and because he's made upgrades in software and he can improve it, he thinks of it as a new model, and he doesn't want to confuse people with what he did before. It's like Model T and jet plane.
Gotcha.
Maybe not quite as dramatic, but Model T and now a modern Chevrolet. As things get better in the future, it'll get better. And with the old people and so many voices like you just expressed, too many people in the middle telling you can do this and do that and do this and do that can slow down what you're doing. So Michael Smith is now Regenitech, pure, no encumbrance from other situations. And so what we do here, the first part is need to create a dragon. The first dragon, when we're talking about starting with $250,000, on the heels of that, concurrently building the frame. So it's about $1 million, $1.5 million in the first period, and then there's more. And then, again, months later, when they start making the stuff coming out of it, either for use in the fields or for sale, you can see it suddenly is providing cash flow even before you get to the other part of the system.
That's great.
So it's $4.5 million would get all the pieces together.
That's great.
But
it's like we tell our farmers to
see, the thing is, some people say, that's built by a county. But they don't need to be built by the county. It's built by the people that own it, that will use it, will have its product. And so there could be investors investing in this thing. And then the farmers, some may be the same people. That's really would be the most ideal for them. They're investing in it. They know they're going to use it themselves so they can get greater yields, and they own it. And that's the kind of model you were talking about earlier, probably, where it's where the people are involved with the product. And I don't know why regular co-ops didn't make it here, but I never really want to look back, because I think especially now in the where we are now. Right now, we have such extraordinary problems. I don't know what the thing is. If the boats stop coming, in how many weeks is it, or how many days? We don't have.
We
enough
have
food?
6 days.
6 days. So we all have to learn how to grow.
Yes.
And so that's why your program is so important. Because I'm running low on time, can you imagine we've been here an hour already?
It's flown by.
We have like 3-4 minutes. That's amazing.
Do you do a call-in? Because there were a few of my apprentices that I alerted about the show.
If they want to call, they might. Do they have questions or anything?
There might be questions, or just statements about what it's been like for them to be part of a program like this.
Well, if they want to call, they're welcome to, but we got 3 minutes. 873-3435 is the call-in line.
Okay.
808-873-3435. But mostly what we were doing here is setting up the climate, and I would imagine that every apprentice, you just said 78% are still farmers.
Yes.
That speaks bundles and bushels, as we say.
Yeah, these bushels. Yeah, and I think that the model that we've held up as, what constitutes a commercial farmer is something that has to be looked at, not only by, those of us who are involved in growing farmers, but those at the government level too, because often government looks at success in a particular way. And when you're talking about feeding your population, then the kinds of economic models that we've operated on around our food system really have to be looked at differently. And I'm interested because we have a census coming up. And so often federal funds make their way down to places like Hawaii based upon the census numbers. And I'm concerned about that. Do we have a caller?
No, we have a minute and a half. I'm concerned that by the time we would like to have you back. I hope that you feel like you could come back.
May I come back with a?
I would hope so.
Yeah, with maybe an apprentice or my wonderful
yes
assistant.
Not only that,
George Apinski.
Oh, but the answer is yes. Yes.
I'd love to.
I mean, but we have only 1 minute left. That is just amazing to me. These shows, they just race by. I'm here with Phyllis Robinson, who has a farm apprentice training program. How do people get in touch with you?
Through my email address.
What's that?
P as in Paul, F as in Frank, IERRO, ROB as in boy at AOL.com.
And we'll have that up on the screen because we are running out of time. Isn't that amazing? Phyllis, thank you for joining us here.
My pleasure, Jason.
Please listen to the show again. There's lots of content. MauiNeutralZone.com. You'll see it as show number 80. Thank you for joining us. Come back every Monday. Go look up on the net. You're going to see a lot of good things. Phyllis Robinson, you are one beautiful person, and thank you for being here with everyone.
Thank you, Jason.
And we look forward to having you back again.
Okay.
And we look forward to having you guys, too. So make sure you come back next week, Monday at 11, to join us here at the Neutral Zone. Aloha, everyone. Have a good week.